Welcome back to In Session. I'm Ryan Smith. Well, you know, jury selection is scheduled to start on Monday in the Casey Anthony murder trial. Now, the big question becomes, where will jury selection take place? Judge Belvin Perry wants to keep the location a secret. He thinks that it's critical to getting an unbiased jury. Now, lead defense attorney Jose Baez has said that he would like a jury pool from South Florida.
South Florida has the largest enough population, and quite frankly, it just doesn't care about this case. Other stories have come and gone, and the Casey Anthony case is basically history as it relates to South Florida.
All right, let's take a look at this. You know, Miami has one of the lowest felony conviction rates in the state of Florida. I want you to take a look at this map. The statistics from the Florida state courts show that the lowest conviction rates for felonies are Key West with 42%. Look at that, Orlando with 47% and Miami with 59%. So Orlando, that very same jurisdiction, low conviction rate. Now, the highest felony conviction rates are in Jacksonville, 89%. Tampa and Fort Pierce each have 78% conviction rates. Let's bring in the experts. Criminal defense attorney Richard Hornsby joins us from outside the courthouse in Orlando, and in-session criminologist and contributor Casey Jordan. She's in New York. Richard, we talked to you first because I think it's terribly ironic that one of the lowest conviction rates is Orlando, and that's the very place where they're trying to get the trial to move away from. Is that a bad move?
Well, the conviction rates are a little skewed because that's overall conviction rates for all felonies. But when you break it down to actual capital cases, the percentage goes way up. In Dade County, which is where Miami is, Palm Beach County, which is where West Palm Beach is, the conviction rate for capital cases that go to trial is 80%. And in Orange County, that percentage goes up to about 80% as well.
Oh,
so there's a huge difference between conviction for capital cases and overall felony cases. And you know, there's a reason for that. One, the jury pool is completely different. You have people that have to agree to impose the death penalty if they find her guilty of murder, whereas people that are a lot more liberal or have religious beliefs are completely excluded simply because of their beliefs. So you're skewing the jury pool itself towards something that favors the state, which is going to cause those conviction rates to go way up. And overall, you have about an 80% conviction rate. Last year in Palm Beach County, for example, there were 13 capital murder trials, and only one person was acquitted. So you see that the odds, no matter where you go, are going to be stacked against the defense just because of the dynamics of how you pick a jury. Okay,
so with that in mind then, if you were trying this case, you were the defense, where would you think the best place would be to go for a capital murder case?
Well, from the defense perspective, I agree with Mr. Baez. Clearly, Dade County, Miami is probably going to be your safest bet to go when you're hoping for a better overall demographic, for people that might be more lenient in the long run and who might be more suspicious of police investigation and behavior and things like that, because it seems that the defense team is going to be raising a lot of those issues. I think Judge Perry is probably going to be focusing on either Palm Beach or Pinellas County. Palm Beach would be ideal specifically because their courthouse is made by the same architect as the one that made Orange County's. It's closer for the court personnel, which Judge Perry is very concerned with, and it has a very similar demographic to Orange County. Pinellas County would also be a good fit. It's Clearwater. There's a question of whether or not their media coverage overlaps with Orlando's. But I think it's far enough away that it might be favorable for Judge Perry as well.
Okay, by the way, you just said that the architecture is similar in the courtroom. Why does that matter?
Well, I think it's just good for, Judge Perry was there. I think it's good just for being familiar with how the courthouse works, for getting in and out. Because remember, Judge Perry is going to be transplanting his entire courthouse team there with him. That includes his clerks, that includes his deputies, that includes any court personnel. And just a familiarity will be one of the factors I think Judge Perry would consider when he's deciding where to go for not only convenience of the defendant, but convenience of the court personnel, for lowering costs, and for trying to keep this the cost from escalating, because Judge Perry is obviously concerned about that issue in addition to Ms. Anthony's right to a fair trial. And from a media perspective, Palm Beach County has no more media exposure than Dade County does to this case.
Okay, very interesting. Now, at one point, Judge Belvin Perry said that publicity was the thing that forced them to move this trial in terms of jury selection.
Because of the extraordinary pretrial publicity in this case, this court, at the request of the defense and concurrence of the state of Florida, was forced to take away a right that every citizen has. That is to be tried by a jury of their peers in the county in which the offense occurred, Orange County, Florida. Because of this court will have to travel to some place in the state of Florida in hopes of selecting a jury, one that...
Okay, Casey Jordan, publicity being the issue here, but how much do you think in terms of a difference it makes in terms of finding the high-quality, impartial juror? How much of a difference do you think there really is between Orlando and, let's say, West Palm Beach? Are we talking about a significant difference in a person's ability to be impartial?
Well, the publicity is really relative. In the state of Florida, I think that phrase he uses, saturation, I think it's statewide. I don't think it's just limited to the Orlando area. And the real issue is going to be just getting it far enough away from Orlando so that potential jurors hopefully don't even know any of the witnesses or characters or know somebody who knows somebody, that whole 6 degree of separation that can really taint potential jurors. That I know somebody who told me this, or my cousin knew the tattoo artist, or something like that. That gets better the further away you go. It's not really related to publicity. I think there are potential jurors who are intelligent and open-minded everywhere. But the people who already might have bias, severe bias, the saturation issue that Judge Perry refers to, are probably in the Orlando area. So I think it's to be commended for just trying to get it a little bit away so that there is a better jury pool to choose from.
Okay. You know, can we put that map back up? Because I want to ask Richard a question about this. Richard, I used to live in Florida. I used to live in Jacksonville. I spent a lot of time in Orlando, spent a lot of time in Miami, and some would say that Jacksonville's a little bit more conservative, that Miami's a little bit more liberal. How much do political views and things like that play into what kind of jury you get in a case like this?
Well, you know, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I think the political views played a much stronger view, whether someone was liberal or conservative, because a lot of it had to do with how you viewed government, how you viewed police officers, and things of that nature. I think it's less important now than it was, obviously, a decade or two ago, but it still plays an important part, because part of the defense's strategy is going to be attacking law enforcement in the way they collect it. And I think people in Miami are going to be much more adept at relating to that, those issues, than somebody, say, in Duval County, which is a military area, which is a very conservative area. I mean, the conviction rates alone should tell the story. Over the last 5 years for capital cases, Duval County's had a 99% conviction rate. Only one person out of something like 60 is being acquitted of a murder case in Duval County, whereas you go down to Dade County and you have an 80% you have an 80% conviction rate in capital murder cases. So you can see the disparity there as well. So yes, it's important. I think it's less so because at the end of the day, any person, no matter what, whether liberal or conservative, can relate to a child dying, and and they can judge it from that perspective, not from whether or not law enforcement did something wrong.
95% conviction rate in certain areas. Casey, got to ask you the last question here. Tell me about your ideal juror in this case. Who would you want to see on that bench? And give it to me from the defense perspective.
From the defense perspective, you're really looking for somebody who can really understand that they have biases. If they pretend they have none, that's a huge red flag. You've got to really spend time questioning them. I mean, this is too important. If it takes an hour, 2 hours, do not cave into battle fatigue. You've got to walk every potential juror through this. One of the favorite questions that I've used when I've consulted for the defense in voir dire is to simply ask a potential juror, if you had to vote right now, right this very second, how would you vote? And if they take more than 30 seconds and want to argue with you or say, well, I can't, that's a problem. The person who looks you squarely in the eye and says, I would vote not guilty. I have to. That's the law. I haven't heard any evidence. And a person is considered innocent until proved guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the juror I would want on the defense team.
Wow, I wonder how much time, if they did it that way, it would take them to determine this. Judge Belvin Perry trying to get it all done in 1 week. Richard Horsley, Casey, thank you so much. Fascinating details on the breakdown in Florida. Could give us an indication of where this jury selection will actually take place. And we're just days away from the start of the Casey Anthony murder trial. Jury selection, as we said, begins on Monday. In Session's going to be there. We're reporting live from Florida for every minute of this groundbreaking case.